We are live on YouTube right now. Shout out to everybody in the live, and we are gonna do our weekly Zoom call with our Patreon community, the illest, most creative online community in the world, in the universe, as far as I'm concerned. And we're gonna be talking about, should you follow your passion? Unpack this Vlad TV Grant Cardone clip. Is there such a thing as bad music? And some healthy habits to be more creative. So, give this video a thumbs up. Stay locked in. Yo, what's going on? It's Ruslan with KingsDreamENT.com. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you to live out God's dream for your life. We are very excited. Every Sunday night, we have our weekly Patreon community Zoom call. Basically, a huge FaceTime type call, if you will. And we talk about different topics. And so I wanted to talk about a few things to tie into something that someone asked. I'm going to bring them in. Canvas, was that you that asked about bad music? Who was that asked about?
No, that was not me.
Okay, that was not you. Okay, somebody asked about bad music. We'll figure it out.
That was Philip. He's not here.
He's not here. Philip, I don't know what Philip's doing. He should be here. We're going to talk about what is bad music, and I'm going to kind of flip the question in a different way. So, as you guys know, Fridays, we do Fan Love Friday. We review music. And by and large, the majority of the music that we review tends to be pretty good on Fan Love Fridays. It's gotten substantially better as I started to give people very specific, objective feedback on their music. Meaning that, yes, art is ultimately subjective to taste. It's ultimately subjected to preference and bias. It's ultimately subjected to what you like. But there are objective things that can make art good or bad. And when you tell people, hey man, these objective things, the mixing on this is bad. Your drums, the drum sounds are bad. The kicks don't knock. Okay, your vocals, they sound too muddy. 250 hertz, 300 hertz, clean that up. Okay, here you're out of tune. You're flat. You're trying to sing, you're flat. You're sharp, right? You're off beat. Man, you sound like you're reading your monotone. Hey, the hook wasn't very memorable. There's no melody that grabs me. There's no phrase that pays, right? So we break it down into some objective rules, if you will. And the thing is, they're principles, not rules, right? Meaning that it's like a video game, right? If you guys ever play video games, you might compete against somebody that has certain powers and characteristics that the other person doesn't have, and they kind of balance each other out. So someone who might have a ton of charisma may not need to have the best hooks because their verses can feel like hooks, right? So they can break the rule. They can become the exception to the rule, if you will. And here's what I've discovered. By and large, once you start addressing people's objective tweaks they can make, the music gets better. And by and large, we now, as a Patreon community, when I say we have the most creative online community, I really believe that. We have the most creative, amazing, talented community on the internet. And so now the question becomes is, if folks aren't making bad music, which I don't think we are. I don't think anybody here is making bad music. There's different tastes, there's different qualities, and we all are works in progress, right? Then why is certain music more popular than other music? Why do certain people rise to the top and other people don't rise to the top, right? Why is some of the most creative music oftentimes flies under the radar for a decade, right? Like in the case of like a Kendrick Lamar, who TDE and those guys consistently been putting out music since 2002, 2001. Kendrick Lamar didn't really explode until about 2012 or 13. That took almost a decade, 6, 7 projects. A guy like Russ put out 10 albums, and then did a song a week for 70 weeks on a platform, and then it finally worked out for him. Why is that? You know what I mean? And so I think those are the questions that I want to unpack. And I'm going to play you guys a clip from Grant Cardone on Vlad TV. Okay. And by the way, if you guys are watching this, you're a patron, you can call in. I'm gonna bring in some people from the community here in a second to help me unpack this clip real quick. But before we do that, if you do call in, I just put it in the chat and it's in the description. Just make sure that you mute yourself as you come in a Zoom call. And what happens is we go on here for about maybe 30 minutes to 60 minutes. We wrap the live stream up on YouTube, and then we have our continued offline Patreon discussion. So again, shout out to all the patrons. Shout out to all you guys watching. So let's check out this clip. I'm going to not do that. Let's see. I'm going to pull the clip up here. Uh-oh. Exit full. Okay, we're going to put this up here. So I'm going to play some of the clip, and then I'm going to bring in the Patreon community. We're going to unpack it a little bit. Just be patient with me here for a second. All right. So this is Grant Cardone. He's a billionaire real estate investor with Vlad TV, talking about Scott Adams. I'm gonna do my best to play as much as I can. I don't want to get hit with the YouTube content ID, but let's check it out.
People will say, well, you're going to be successful in something you're really passionate at, and you have to find your passion. But he kind of said, well, you know, you're passionate about the things that do well and make you money, and people seem to like. You become more passionate as more energy builds around these things. Like,
so he's talking about Scott Adams. Scott Adams is a cartoonist. And he's talking about passion, right? I'm gonna fast forward through that clip because I want to get you guys' Grant's response to this. Now, where my mind goes is we are passionate about art. Therefore, the logical thing becomes, well, if I follow my passion, I will become successful. But there's a couple ingredients that we need to factor in. So let me play this. And this is not an endorsement of Grant Cardone or Vlad TV or Scott Adams. Some of you guys think in those linear paths where like I'm endorsing everything they represent and everything they say. I'm not. This is just something I think is important. I want to talk about it. Okay, so I'm gonna play this clip and then we're gonna talk about it a bit more.
About something when no one cares about it, and it's
they say that
about something
you think you can get that.
You could just be so passionate about something when no one cares about it and it's literally making no money.
Yeah. You can be passionate about something no one cares about. You can be passionate about underwater basket weaving and no one cares about it. You can be passionate about a specific niche of art and you got your art degree in a specific world that no one really is paying attention to, right? And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful and be rewarded for that in the marketplace, right? That's not what that means. So let's hear Grant Cardone's explanation. I think this is really interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, totally. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's bad. It's bad advice for people to follow their passions.
You guys probably think this is crazy coming from me on this channel, right?
Like, just because you're passionate about something. I was on a show recently and this kid goes into his pitch about his business and why he loves it and he loves this idea, and I'm like, yeah, bro, it doesn't matter if you love it. If nobody else needs it, wants it, or will pay for it, it don't matter.
If nobody else loves it, needs it, or will pay for it, it does not matter. Okay.
Yeah, and I almost feel that knowing when to quit is more important than knowing not to quit. Because you could very easily just keep hammering your head for years on something that's never going to go anywhere. But to be able to just say, look, I'm cutting my losses. This is going nowhere. I'm going to go focus on something else is extremely important. More important, I feel.
Yeah, that's not quitting, though. That's all that's doing is moving, shifting your obsession from this thing's not working, shifting that obsession and that energy and that massive action to a channel that can work.
That's good. So he's talking about shifting your identity. Shout out to Emmanuel in the Zoom chat. He just dropped this verse on us. This is cold. He said, Proverbs 18:16, your gift will make room for you. We should follow our gift. That's a bar. And I think that your gift and the things that are revealed to you will make room for you. That's totally key. And it's all in how you shift that energy. Okay, let's keep it watching.
And everybody is required to make a shift along the way. The vehicle you start on will not be the vehicle you arrive on.
Right, because you said your career should be a religious mission.
Yeah, and I should go through a series of evolutions, so that I'm not, I might not show up on a horse if I started in 1800.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Vlad TV.
Okay, so he goes on about Vlad TV and he goes on about Vlad TV and how Vlad TV, he started as a DJ and then he discovered he didn't want to just keep DJing these events because he's getting too old for it. And he, pivoted, basically is what he's saying. And so I wanted to bring in some guys from the Zoom community, kind of unpack this a little bit. And then I'm going to pull up a chart that I also pulled up on Fan Love Friday. And again, some of this should make us feel uneasy. And I'll give you guys some practical solutions on what I think we should be considering in terms of passion, purpose, vocation, career, right? All these different variables I think we have to consider if we're looking at making a career out of music and how to most tangibly do that, right? If we're passionate about music, what are some practical ways? So we're going to get on that. But does anybody want to chime in from the Patreon community? I know some of you guys are probably like, Ruslan's all about following your dream and this and this and that. What's happening? You know what I'm saying? It's good. I want to challenge us. on this. I'm going to bring in my man Canvas. Let me fix that. Let me go full gallery mode. Boom. All right. What do you think, Canvas?
Yeah, so I remember I'm reminded of a quote from Mark Cuban. I have his book, How to Win at the Sport of Business. Yep. And he says, don't follow your passions, follow your efforts. Because what you put time and effort into are the things that you actually care about.
That's good.
And so you can say you're passionate about something, but if you're not putting the time into actually doing it, you may not be as passionate about it as you think. And I think there's a lot of truth to what Grant said and what Proverbs says. As you pursue something more and more,
yeah,
if you're enjoying that thing, you start to become passionate about it.
That's good.
And I think the key is to just try different things, especially when you're younger, and find your thing. I find a lot of people don't know what they want to do with their life. And usually that's okay. If you're decent, if you're young, that's okay. A lot of people panic when they're 24 and out of college and they don't know what to do with their life. Like, it's totally acceptable to try a bunch of things. I tried all kinds of different jobs and everything before I realized I can't work for anybody. Yeah. But it took me working 4, 5, 6 jobs to figure that out, because I tried it here, tried it there. I'm like, I can't do this. I got to go do my own thing.
That's good.
And so I think trying things and just focusing where your efforts are at. It's kind of like Jesus said, like, where your treasure is, there your heart is. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what you spend your money on, what do you spend your time on? So I just think that's something that I was reminded of.
Amen. That's good. Anybody else want to chime in real quick? Let me see. I'm gonna let me know if somebody else wants to chime in, because this is good. No? Okay, somebody is not muted. Who is not muted? Okay. So and the tough part is also, like, as Christians, we tend to, like, hyper spiritualize everything. Right? So we tend to think that, like, because we enjoy doing something, that God is going to use that thing to make us rich and famous. You know what I'm saying? And God's called us to a specific thing, and that's the thing, right? And so you hear these things. I hear these things a lot where people will be like, "Man, I was working a job, and then God told me to quit and go do music full time." And I'm like, "Well, that's not really wise. That's not really responsible. Don't you still got bills? Don't you still got things you got to do?" Yeah, I just, God just called me. Well, how do you know that God called you? How are you, how are you sure? And so my path was much more linear than that. My path was very, I paid off all my debt. I saved for 6 months of living expenses. I had a ton of passive revenue already coming in. I dropped multiple projects, so there was already revenue coming in. So I knew that I was going to get the ship close enough to the dock to make that jump into doing music full time. But a lot of people, they want to romanticize this idea of, I'm just going to jump out the window and just do what God called me to do. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that might be very dangerous. And we apply scriptures about, like, missionaries and going out without anything. The disciples went out without anything, and God provided. And we apply that kind of stuff to being full-time rappers. You know what I'm saying? It is like, very, very dangerous to First of all, to assume that you're always hearing the audible voice of God. You know what I'm saying? Because that could be the bad pizza you had last night. That could be the weird sushi you had. That could be all kinds of different things. You know what I'm saying? That your feelings aren't always God. You know, and God oftentimes speaks through situations. God speaks through communities. God speaks through spouses. Does your spouse have peace on the situation? You know what I mean? If you're moving into something and your spouse is not okay with it, I mean, that's a big sign that may not be the thing you should be doing, quitting your job with all your bills coming in, right? I think so much of the things of God is much more tangible and practical. And so in that, we have to examine our own heart and what we're doing, and what is the variable that helps someone to actually make an income, because it's not just talent. It's not just talent. It's not just talent. And it's not just work ethic. Because I know a lot of talented people that work very hard and they never cut through and make a breakthrough, right? And I meet people all the time that a lot of times are way more talented than I am, that are way more hardworking than I am even, and they're having trouble cutting through. So what is it? What is that other variable? Does anybody want to chime in on what you guys think those other ingredients are that can help people to cut through? If you're going to chime in, just make sure your camera's on. Let me see.
Bet.
Eximio said character. His camera's off. I think character helps. I don't think it's just character. I think you could have a ton of talent, have good character, have good work ethic, and it's still not click for you. You know what I'm saying? It's still not, you still not get what you're trying to get to. I'm gonna bring in Kunle. Give me 1 second. Let me pin you up, and then there's a little hand raise feature. Just keep yourself muted until I bring you in, guys. Boom. What do you think, bro?
So the only other thing that I could consider, if you're hardworking and then you're also talented, it just might not be the right timing. And I think, we were talking about Kendrick earlier, somebody that we see is supremely talented, clearly, right? But it took him a decade.
Yep.
And then you got people like, I don't know, you have so many people that literally, they start at one point. They're not necessarily recognized for their talents, but they continue to grow. They continue to hone in on those talents. They continue to sharpen the sword. And when they finally get the stage that they have been working towards, it's just a whole nother level of preparedness that like literally explodes them.
Yes.
And clearly that's not the case all the time. That's like the most utopian sense of that scenario. But I think one thing that we do sometimes, especially as Christians and artists, is timing. Like the world may not be ready for our gifts yet. The world may not be ready for what we have to offer. And, God has a plan for it. God has it on his own timeline, but obviously, we don't see things that certain ways. So
yes.
I don't know. I'm just thinking that might be it. That
Timing,
might be it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Timing is good, man. I think that's a great one. Let me bring in Xavier Sorrow. Also, and you guys, by the way, you guys are hearing from like freakishly talented people. Like Kunle is one of my favorites on here. Xavier Sorrow is super dope. So what do you think, bro? You're muted, fam. Oh, your mic's not on. Boo.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. You're back. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I think another thing too is probably just like communication and like involving people in the process. So like a lot of times when I'm trying to do something or trying to get, word out or, trying to promote a song, a lot of times I'll involve friends in the process of the release. So like if I wanted a cover art that was super dope, I would involve a friend, do their photo shoot, have them involved, and they would promote to their friends. And I think it's like just the fact of communicating, but also like getting people on your side before the execution starts.
That's good, man. That's actually really good. Communication, getting people on your side. You're speaking to, really what you're speaking to is sales. You're speaking to sales. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because you're getting people in a micro tribe. Maybe it's a small tribe, but just your close friends and family. You're getting them sold on something and leveraging their attention and their audience to get more. So I think that's really good. That's really good. Okay. Anybody else want to chime in? Who we got? Let me bring in Kevlar first, because he's new here. Let's see. What do you think, bro? Oh, your mic's off. Boo! boo. I'm booing all y'all.
Am I good?
Now you're good.
Am I good?
Let's go.
What Homeboy just said about involving people,
Yeah.
like, you know, when I first started rapping, I wanted everything to be me on my track, you know, so I could show it's my creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want. It was pride, you know. I wanted it to be mine.
Yep.
And what I did instead was I'd let some chick at my church sing the chorus or something, right? And have somebody else do parts on it and just take my hands off. And when I did that, like the people who sang, they shared it with their people, you know, and so it like spread out deeper.
Good. Collaboration.
And at the same time, you're showing love to people who want to do stuff, and they get, you know, a few friends of mine have gotten popular from one of the tracks they've done at my studio or on one of my joints, and that's the most encouraging thing, is to sit in the back and see that you put people there in the background. Andy Mineo, I can play the background, but actually playing the background.
Yep.
So involving other people is the best thing, and you don't have to have everything be just you if you're a beginner.
That's good.
That's all I got.
That's good, man. Let me bring in Canvas. Let me bring in Conscience. Canvas already spoke. All right, what do you think, bro?
You hear me?
Yep.
No boo?
No boo.
Okay, so I'm going to fly through this, but I've been making music since I was 13 and putting it out in the world. I'm 30 now. And so I can only speak to this personally. But I think the number one thing that prevents people to connecting to people is they treat their craft like a grenade on a battlefield, and they're just chucking their grenade with their eyes closed. They don't know if they're aiming to somebody, or they might have somebody in mind, but they don't know where that target and location is.
Yep.
So they're just like chucking their music like grenades out into the world and hoping it has some type of splash and impact. And so I think the number one thing is setting aside the assumption of we're not doing the music for therapy or whatever. We're talking about people that actually want to get heard, want to make sales, want to impact people.
Yep.
Then the number one thing is it's about people.
Yep. It's good.
And so we have to, and it's not just about all people.
Yep.
It's about specific people that even though you don't know who they are, you need to be looking for people and showing people your music. So I've found that that's the number one thing is cats are not marketing to specific people. And because they don't know who, they're not looking at specific people, they're just looking at some broad range of the world, quote unquote.
Yeah.
They don't meet real people, so they can't meet real needs.
Yep. That's good.
So meeting needs is important when you're bringing people value. How can I bring people value? It's kind of like the thing, like pray for me. Well, what am I praying for?
Yep.
That would inform my prayer and maybe my ability to meet a need outside of the prayer. Context matters.
Yes.
And so another thing that's really helped me, aside from just finding real people and being more on the ground with it, because it's like that saying, you know, if 1,000 people spend $100 on your music a year, you'd be making $100K a year.
Yep.
Well, okay, so we need to make our goals a lot more practical and say, okay, I could definitely impact 1,000 people. Let me go find 1,000 people and find a legit way to bring them $100 worth of value.
Come on.
And build towards that, because we all don't need to be superstars.
Yes.
There's a lot of room for all of us, and we're thinking way too broad and unpractical. And then the last thing I would say that's just been a game changer for me, and it's also impacted my faith, is I heard Paul Tripp at a conference talk about how the family structure spiritually, those in Christ, needs to be one of a theological learning community. That means that your household needs to be a community in which we are learning about the knowledge of God.
Yeah.
Regularly, and so that the aroma of Christ is in the home in a real way, where we're learning things about God. It's impacting our life. We're building a love for God and a hatred towards sin.
Yeah.
In the same way with music, I've found that taking on that same principle of, hey, I need to make my mind and my training, I need to move towards learning new things about not only the craft, but the business of craft every single day.
Yes.
And also surround myself with other people who we've collectively agreed we're going to do the same thing together, so that every day we're learning a new way to impact people, to make our craft better, to affect change, to, here's another important one, to help other people.
Come on.
Are in different stages of life as well. So building a learning community around things of business and things of art and things of Jesus is instrumental. So when you start introducing those things into your life, you get real practical steps that you can take on a day-to-day basis that make the achieving of your goals very realistic. So you ask people, why don't you think you're successful? They begin to fantasize, and it's almost like they don't understand, they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you don't know because you don't have any practicality in how you're going to execute. And we don't execute goals that way.
That's good. That's good, man. Y'all are dropping bars tonight. Goodness gracious. Okay. I can tell you guys one of my biggest mistakes. When I was asked the question, hey man, who's your music for? You know what I would say? It's for everybody. It's for everybody. What does that mean? What does that mean, baby? Is your music for Christians? Is it not for Christians? Is it for the world? Is it for men? Is it for women? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Is it for kids? Is it for babies? Is it for toddlers? Is it for college students? Is it for young adults? Is it for young professionals? Is it for young married people, right? No, man, my music's for everybody. My music's for everybody, right? And like there's such a small percentage of people that make music for everybody. Right? Like Taylor Swift makes music for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like such a small, and mostly everything else is through micro tribes. You have to know your micro tribe. So I love what Conscience said. So if you don't know who your music's for, that's probably a big issue on why it's not connecting, because you don't know what you're aiming at. You know what I'm saying? If you make very swaggy new school music, you know what I'm saying? Like you're probably not going to connect with the underground purist backpack community. It's just probably not going to resonate to them. They're not going to like it. And that's okay. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a disconnect because we aren't starting with the end in mind. You know what I mean? I'm going to get real practical with you guys. You know what I'm saying? This Taylor Swift make music for me. Yeah, I mean, she got some jams. You know what I'm saying? What was that one record she had? She had a really dope record. I can't remember. It had some dope horns into it. I think it was produced by I want to say it was produced by like a hip hop producer, but it slapped. She got a couple jams, yo. So, but what I'm not saying is like I own Taylor Swift music. I'm saying that her music is wide enough to touch so many people, but it's really the distribution platforms on how her music can get in front of people. You know what I'm saying? Shake It Off. That joint is cold. Who produced Shake It Off? That had to have been a hip hop producer who did Shake It Off. That joint is cold. Or Lizzo's Lizzo record. That record she has called Truth Hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like that is a record that had a very direct niche in mind. It was written for women by women, and then it became so massively huge that everybody enjoys that record now. You know what I'm saying? And we think that like we're gonna do that. Like that, like that is such a small percentage. So we don't start with the end in mind. But here's the bigger question is, are we okay with learning the things that come along with the craft that you're passionate about? And I'll give you guys a very, very practical example. You guys have heard me talk about this. My first career choice was to be a professional basketball player. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to go to the NBA. I thought it was going to happen. I really thought I was going to make it. You know, and then my sophomore year, I got cut on my JV basketball team. And for some reason, up until that point, no one told me that I was 5 foot, a white dude that was 5'10" and Armenian. You know what I'm saying? And no one told me that an Armenian had never made it to the National Basketball Association. No one had the heart to tell me that. You know what I'm saying? But I had this dream that I was gonna make it to the NBA. But here's the truth. I was passionate about the craft of basketball. I liked playing basketball, and I even enjoyed being in shape. But everything that came along with basketball, I wasn't passionate about. I was not passionate about the team. I was an only child. You know what I'm saying? I struggled with connecting with the team, with the camaraderie, with the, if you guys ever been to like a high school basketball game, there's a lot of little cultural tidbits that they do. They have handshakes. They do the little circle thing where they all like huddle up and then they like spin around. And there's like all these little nuances. They slap each other on the butt. Like because I was disconnected and I was an only child, I had trouble with that. Here's another thing. Politics with coaches. I wasn't really into the politics. I wasn't into building a relationship with the coach. I wasn't into all those other things. All the nuanced things about basketball outside of just playing basketball, I wasn't passionate about. And guess what? I would have became a better basketball player had I paid attention to the team, had I had better relationships with my coaches, had I been more culturally engaged to what was going on in that court besides just I'm athletic. I can jump and I'm strong because I did squats and I bench pressed and I was one of the youngest kids working out. So I should just be a starter on the basketball team. And that mentality got me cut from my JV basketball team, not because I was the weakest player, but because I didn't fit the team culture. I didn't fit the dynamic, right? And so when it comes to music, are you interested? Are you passionate about everything else that comes along with music? Can you grow passionate about having good social media, having a great Instagram page, taking great photography? Okay, let me back up before that. Great aesthetic. You know what I mean? So many of us do not give a crap about what we look like, and we wonder why our music's not cutting through. You know what I'm saying? Well, because you're freaking running around rapping in gym clothes. You know what I'm saying? With sweatpants on and your belly hanging out. You know what I mean? And you're wondering why it's not resonating with people. Well, maybe because it's not visually aesthetic and people see before they hear. You know what I mean? So before Instagram, are you into the visual aesthetic? If you're there's guys out there that are heavier guys that dress super cool. Jay Crumb, for example, brother out in Nebraska. I just hung out with him. My man pulled up. He walked into my hotel room, dripped out. He had one of them really dope Coogee sweaters on that Biggie used to wear. You know what I'm saying? With some super dope sneakers. And the whole day, guess who was getting complimented? Not me. Him, because he was fly and he was a big boy. You know what I'm saying? So like, do you care about the visual aesthetic? Are you playing into stuff that may look better on your frame, right? Okay, cool. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with understanding the algorithm of the platforms? Are you okay with being an early adapter on these platforms, right? Everybody's always like, man, the algorithm on Instagram, I can't get, okay, go to TikTok. Oh, you don't want to go to TikTok. Oh, because it's too much work. Oh, because you got to create content. Oh, because you don't want to make content. Oh, that's why your music's not cutting through. That's why you're not being disruptive, because you're so into the music that you're ignoring the team, you're ignoring the people, you're ignoring the social nuance of what it actually takes to make it in music now. You know what I mean? And so I think that becomes the issue, is that we're not lacking talent and we're not lacking hard work. Everybody in this Zoom call, for the most part, I'm looking at you guys, is talented and works hard. You know what I'm saying? And some of you guys have different breakthrough based on the variables I'm talking about. Some of you guys are really, like a guy like Xavier Sorrow, very savvy on social media. He dresses cool. You know what I'm saying? If he has some cool frames on right now. The lighting in his room looks dope. He cared enough to make sure there was a cool blue light behind him, because he probably thought about, I'm going to be on the live YouTube. I should have a good aesthetic behind me. You know what I'm saying? And so I think those are all the other variables that go into, and here's the caveat. The only commodity now, the real commodity, is time. That's the real commodity, is what are you willing to give your time to, and time and attention. So if you're passionate about music, great. I'm glad that you're passionate. Follow that passion if you're willing to follow the passion about attention, about time, about social nuance, about culture, about visual aesthetic, about everything that comes along. And don't look at the exception to the rule and say, look, Jay Electronica made it and he wasn't a good looking guy and he wasn't on social media and he's not on Instagram. It's like, yeah, he's a freaking unicorn. Like you're pointing to people that are unicorns and you think that you're a unicorn. And maybe you are a unicorn, but guess what? Unicorns aren't very common. You know what I mean? And so I think we have to take evaluation of our own heart and say, okay, am I truly passionate about basketball? I am. I love basketball. Am I passionate about the culture of basketball, the politics of basketball, all those other things. And if I'm honest, I'm just not. I wasn't at the time. You know what I'm saying? But I'm a better basketball player now than I was 20 years ago. And guess what I learned to do? I learned to pass the ball. I learned to be very encouraging. I learned to be very affirming. I learned to greet every single person that walks on the court, introduce myself, ask them what their name is, remember their name throughout the entire experience, right? So these are very tactical things we can apply to music. Do you know your fans' names? Do you know your fans' names? Do you have a super phone? Are you keeping contacts of information to give them the opportunity to pre-save your song and to buy your album or to buy your merch? Are you communicating with them directly through Are you replying to your superphone text messages? You know what I'm saying? And I promise you, the guys that are doing these things, and they're good and they're talented and they have great character, those are the guys that we're seeing the breakthrough. But most of us, we think we could just do it on our own terms, and very few things get accomplished on your own terms. So I know I just said a whole lot. Anybody want to chime in? Let me bring in my man Canvas. Anybody want to chime in? Feel free. I know I just threw a grenade in this joint. Go ahead, bro.
Man, it's hard to follow that and conscience. You guys are dropping. But, just a couple of thoughts I had that I hope can be encouraging. So I think the first thing is I think I want to touch on what I think it was Kunle that said the world may not be ready for your gifts yet. I think a lot of us can sometimes, if we're not careful, we read scripture and we kind of use God's calling to justify what you refer to as chasing fantasies, like we read in Proverbs, right? So I think, did you mess up the pin? I'm good. All right. So yeah, I think we can use scripture and read ourselves into scripture. And one thing my pastor always says is the Bible's not about us. I've heard pastors say, like, try to find where you are in the text. And that's not always what you should be doing, because the Bible is not about you.
Yep.
The Bible's about Jesus. And so there are things we can apply to our lives, but there are things that in context just were not for us, just depending on what it is. And the second thing I would touch on is the things that I thought were getting in the way of me doing music at the time. And I wanted to get out of those things, like the sales jobs I worked, all the different things I did. What I thought was getting in the way was actually preparing me for music. And God was actually using those things to sharpen me as a person, to get me ready to do music. For example, when I worked for Mercedes-Benz, and I sold high-end cars to people that were generally very successful and generally had a lot more money than me. And so I had to learn how to talk to these people, how to engage with them, how to sit down with them, how to sell them.
Come on.
I remember my first new car sale, and it felt so good when I closed that sale and I saw him drive away in an $80,000 car because of what I said to him. And that felt good. Those skills, learning how to interact with all kinds of people and not judge them when they walk through the door based on their situation, and be able to treat everybody with respect and have that salesmanship, that prepared me to eventually, when I figured out I couldn't work for anybody else, start a business. Then I took what I learned in marketing and training and all that, I took that and put it into my business. And now the money that I'm going to make for my business, now I can take that and put it into music. And when I start to have a fan base, and it all connects. And at the time I was like, man, I just got to get out of here so I can get to the music. But God was like using all of that to grow me. And I think at the time, God's answer might be no, or his answer might be wait.
Yeah.
I saw Jackie Hill tweet something where she said something really dope, where she said, our heart may not be ready for the success right now.
That's good.
Because if I had started to take off with a business 2-3 years ago, man, I'm still a little selfish, but before I was married, like, I was the most selfish dude ever. And if I had been given any kind of success or any kind of, things that hadn't sharpened me, bro, it would have been a mess. So I think that God uses these things to sharpen you. And I was encouraged by Proverbs 16, where it says, a man plans in his heart, but the Lord determines his steps.
Amen. That's good.
And I think that we need to be careful about making our calling and taking our calling and saying that it's God's calling, because it may not always be for that time, and that may not always be what it is. So anyway,
that's good, man. Does anybody else want to chime in? And because hold on, who's that? Give me a sec. Yo, your mic sounds super sketch, Kev, by the way.
Oh, is it better? Am I messing up the live?
It's fine. It's better now. Go ahead.
All right. So 3 things I wrote down. Homeboy said a bomb Like you throw your music out there and expect somebody, just to hit everybody and hit everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I did for the longest time. People think famous cats, they just made music, threw it out there, and got picked up.
Yeah.
Their producer bit their hook and their lines dragged them in. But that rarely ever happens. Dude's been working for a long time. Like NF, that's what NF said. He's been doing it for a long time, shows and everything.
Yep.
Can't do that. You got to be willing to be trendy for a little bit. Like I'm a purist, and I was like, man, I got to be willing to, if I want to go somewhere, I got to be willing to bend a little bit and catch somebody, hook somebody. And then this is mad important. On YouTube, right? Lots and lots of cats have been making millions of dollars making children's content for like kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just make random stuff with playing like Blippi. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It helping people, right?
Yeah.
And that's our goal. We're Christians. We love everybody. The Holy Ghost want to help people. If y'all really want to make music and really want to help people, especially the next generation, do kids music. Direct it towards the kids and make it memorable theology for the kids. And I'm telling you, it's going to help them.
Yep.
And parents are going to grab it. You might not feel it because you're not getting the respect from the older MCs, because that's where we all kind of start is, man, I want to be the best MC. I want to win this battle. And I just want to get props. But for real helping people.
That's a great point. Not to cut you off. There's a thing my son listens to all the time in the car. You know what he listens to? He listens to this stuff called Kids Trap. And it's like positive raps about science and listening to your parents and this whole thing. And it's massive. They got like 12, 13 albums, and it's all Kids Trap stuff. And so that's really interesting that you point that out, because something like that with theological truth in it could be huge. He likes that, and the other thing he wants to listen to all the time whenever we get in the car is that, or Dad, play Closed on Sunday by Kanye. Play Closed on Sunday by Kanye. Like, those are the two things he really enjoys. So that's a good point. I think the thing that's dangerous about the kids thing, though, the caveat to that is for YouTube, the kids' content is getting blocked on YouTube right now. So there's a whole thing that got passed cop that they're pulling all that stuff down. But to your point, you can make kids' content music, and if there's a strategy to get it, I don't know how you would actually get it out there to parents or whatever. Maybe the route of Christian parents, but
church ministry.
Yeah, church ministry. Yeah, the caveat to that is you don't have to consider the visual aesthetic as much, because you're probably not going to be doing a bunch of concerts for little kids. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think that's one thing I did is my pastor back maybe a couple of years ago, I was attending a Reformed church, and he told me write a joint about how to read the Bible for the youth group, and these. From like 10 to 15, right? Yeah. And it's on my YouTube. It's mad simple hermeneutics and exegesis. What's it there for? Context, students. Just super simple, and how to read the Bible properly and make it understand. And they had me perform it for them. Just turned on the beat and performed it for the kids, and just gave them a bunch of CDs. And it was. I mean, if I would have focused on something like that, I feel like, because I want to, because my baby daughter, she's 2, and I'm always thinking, man, I wish I made these. I can rap, I can write. I wish I made these little melodies.
Yo, check out Kids Trap, for real. Check out Kids Trap.
It'll blow your mind. Will. But yeah, I'm not Reformed, by the way. I just attended the church for a little bit, but that's all I got to say, though.
Okay, word up, man. Appreciate you, bro. Let's see. Does anybody else want to come in? Because I want to segue from this point. Oh snap, my man Professor Biz. Hold on, let me pin him real quick. Look at the Kids Trap. Look at the Kids Trap. Yo, there's like a gajillion versions of those records, yo, and they stream like crazy.
Yo, I'm gonna screenshot that boy. He was looking so hard in front of that screen.
Yo, Kids Trap. I'm telling you guys, you're talking about replayable music for kids. Anyway, does anybody just want to chime in? Because I want to go back to what Canvas said, because what Canvas basically said was this. Is he said you have to be willing to basically learn new skills. You have to be willing to learn new skills, to pick up new skills. He said he was working selling cars. He learned how to he learned sales. Because he learned sales, He learned how to communicate. He learned how to engage. That's a new skill he had to develop, right? And then he had to develop other skills to start his own business, probably a bit of bookkeeping, right? So the question to me becomes, how do we position our lives in a way where we're willing to work hard, have godly character, right? Define the talents that we have, but also be in a spirit and a frame of mind to learn the new skills that it takes to be successful on a platform like TikTok. I open up TikTok and I freak out. It's a whole new world. What is going on? How do I use it? You know what I'm saying? But I see people virtually within a month growing to 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 followers on TikTok, friends of mine. You know what I'm saying? It's like an artist named Trey Little on TikTok grew to over 100,000 followers on TikTok in, I think, 4 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Alex Dion Wilson grew to, I think he's at 400,000 followers on TikTok in 4 weeks. I open that and guess what? I freak out because I got to learn something. Or when conscience is telling me, bro, you got to start getting on Twitch. You got to start getting on Twitch. I open up Twitch. I freak out. It's a new platform, right? How do we build lives with healthy habits that position us to be willing to learn Twitch and learn TikTok and learn IGTV and learn the algorithm and be in a spot where we can learn all the things that are required to go along with being successful as artists and creatives in this era? And I think this is the area where many of us are hurting and we don't know we're hurting. And I'll give you guys an example. I got my son a loft bed from IKEA, right? And so some of you guys know the story, and I thought it'd be a great idea, right? And so in the middle of me getting this loft bed, I was like, oh, this would take a couple hours to put together, right? Didn't do a ton of research on it. Boom, putting together the loft bed, right? And literally an hour in, I'm on TaskRabbit looking at someone to come and finish it for me because I'm frustrated. I don't know if you guys know what TaskRabbit is. TaskRabbit, you can hire people to do stuff for you, right? And you know why I did? I meant TaskRabbit. You know why I didn't hire somebody? Because the top 3 IKEA assemblers on TaskRabbit were all females. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to let a woman do this for me. I could do it. I'm a man. I could build this thing. I got this, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to put this bed together, and about 3 hours into it, y'all know how you put together IKEA things? They give you the little L-shaped wrench, and you're supposed to build like a massive loft bed that's all the way up to the ceiling with a little itty bitty wrench. So I was like, yo, I thought of this story, and I've shared this story before. There's 2 men that want to go and they need to chop down some wood for their house. There's 2 of them, right? One guy goes out into the woods and he spends 5-6 hours just chopping down the wood, right? The other man spends an hour sharpening his axe and then spends 2 hours chopping down a tree because he slowed down and he got time to get his axe sharpened, and then he chopped down a tree. You know what I'm saying? And so I thought of this. I was like, man, I tell people this point all the time. I need to apply this. So you guys know what I did in the middle of this? I drove to Home Depot, which is right next door, and I spent like $150 on tools. Okay, it wasn't $150. It was like $100 on tools. And I came back with tools. I had like stripped one of the bolts, and I came back with tools, and I assembled, and everything started moving a bit faster, right? And it was still, I still didn't know what I was doing, but it was moving faster. And my wife came in and she helped me, right? And so what are those things in your life that you're just trying to do by sheer force, and you're too prideful to ask for help because you think the people that can help you, that you could pay to help you, maybe you think they're beneath you, maybe you think you're the expert? But what are those things in your life that you're committed to doing, but you're just trying to do it by force when you really need to do it by finesse, when you really need to be okay with learning something new that you're spending all this time on Instagram, but if you just learn TikTok and figure out how to finesse TikTok, you might just hop over and blow up on TikTok and then blow up on Instagram or then blow up on YouTube, right? So this is where, to me, sharpening your axe, sharpening your blade, right? The scripture says, as iron sharpens iron, so a man another man, right? Community, right? So something I started doing, like I hit a ceiling in my workouts. So you guys know what I did? I went and hired a trainer. You know what I'm saying? That's a sacrifice for me. I'm paying for the accountability. I'm paying for somebody to ask me, how is my eating going? I'm paying somebody to train me, even though I could train myself, but I'm paying to dig deeper, right? That's a sacrifice for me. That's me sharpening my axe, right? Getting up early. Last night, you guys are going to think this is ridiculous. Y'all know what time I went to bed last night? 9 o'clock. I was in bed on a Saturday at 9 o'clock, right? And my wife came home after me. She was at a friend's house. She's like, "Are you asleep?" And I was out. And guess what time I woke up? I woke up before 6. I woke up. My little app that keeps track of my sleep said I got 100%. I've never gotten 100% of my sleep before. Got 100% of my sleep. Was at the gym. Had a great workout, right? And I'm sharp. I'm focused. I'm dialed in, right? So these are the other things that surround your art. That surround your art is these different other things around the art, but then you actually being in a mental state, in a physical state, in an emotional state where you can open up a new thing like TikTok and then not freak you out and you just quit. Why? Because you're stressed out, because you're not eating good, because you're not drinking enough water, because you're not sleeping, because you're staying up too late. You know what I'm saying? You're waking up too early and you just feel like crap. So when I tell you, hey, by the way, man, you want to be a successful musician, by the way, you got to go learn something new, bro. You got to go learn something. You got to figure out, maybe you need to learn how to mix. Maybe you need to learn how to take videos. Maybe you need to take how to, and you just freak out and you're like, whoa, I don't want to learn anything new. I just want to be an artist. I just want to be an artiste. I just want to make my music and I want to share it with the world and I want to put it out and whoever discovers it and that's it. And that's it. That's how I want my life. And it's like, yo, nothing goes that way. You know what I'm saying? We got to stop looking at the freaking unicorns, at the J Electronicas who just put out a song with Just Blaze and blow up. And that's a BS story anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, and stop looking at the unicorns and the exceptions to the rule and ignoring. And so I could get very specific about my health related stuff and what I'm doing, but I just kind of wanted to open that up with you guys in terms of how healthy habits will actually make you more creative, not necessarily make you a better rapper, but they'll actually put you in a creative mind to learn something new, to maybe learn a better cadence, a new cadence, to maybe write better hooks, to maybe learn a new way to get the music out there. So I know I just said a lot there. Cass is talking about if I take time to breathe. Yes, I take time to breathe. It's just good breath control because I'm in shape, sucker. Who wants to chime in? Conscious, you got your hand up? Here, I'm gonna bring in Conscious.
Am I good on my mic?
Yes, sir.
So I just, we don't run commercials on this YouTube, but I want to run one for you. So I think if I'm kind of speaking to the community at this point, anybody who would watch this video back or who's tuned in live with us, we've said a lot of great things, and I think sometimes we can be stimulated by a good conversation and we don't synthesize things the way other people might be in the moment. Not everybody is like a go-getter, a business guy who's really ready to just work hard. And so like one thing that's just like poking out in my mind like crazy right now is just like, if you're the guy who's not really just self-motivated and struggles with what the next step for you looks like, a lot of times your friend circle will be reflected of the type of progress that you'll make in your own life with your goals. That type of accountability. And I know for a lot of my friends, they don't really have that. Like I've got some friends that specifically are just kind of hermits and they do better by themselves and they manage their feelings and their goals themselves. And you can kind of just get into this drunk rut of thinking that you've exhausted all the best ideas and best practical steps for yourself. And it's very paralyzing. So I just want to take a second to like plug Ruslan's Patreon community because I can tell you, because if you don't have a community like that around you locally, man, join the Patreon because like most of us, there's 200 people in the Patreon. I can testify to at least 50 I know who I text regularly, call regularly, meet on Sunday on the Zoom call, meet with on YouTube or on Fan Love Friday. And when you have a certain layer of accountability or like-mindedness around you, people can call your bluff and also motivate you to get off your butt and have some real practical things that you can do. And like Ruslan said with the workout buddy, it's easier for most people to get things done when they feel a part of a community. Mm-hmm. So being a part of the community will motivate you to accomplish anything in your life, even if you're not like an artist, to just see like-minded people that love you and care about you to motivate you. Get something done. You can do something else. There's more things to be done.
That's good.
And so I just want to encourage you guys, man. I know personally, man, most everybody in this call can vouch and say, I've texted these guys to say, hey, if you need anything musically, mixing, hooks, good conversation, advice, like I'm here. And I've made it a point to do that too, because there's something really rewarding about offering yourself first before asking for anything. So yeah, man, I just wanted to plug the Patreon community, man. There's 200 people here that could potentially 3 to 5 of those people might be your best friends one day in terms of an online encouraging place where you can come to and grow. So yeah.
And to further that, like, so much of what we do, and Conscious will tell you, is like goes offline. Like me and Conscious just hung out, and it was brief. I had a layover that ran, I thought it was gonna be 3 hours. It ended up being like an hour. He met me for lunch, and we like hung out. You know what I'm saying? I've hung out with Kunle. I've hung out with, I feel like I've hung out with Canvas. I've hung out with a handful of you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like in real life. You know what I mean? And so I would second that, and I would just say, if you are in a physical community where you're the most creative person in the room, you're the most creative rapper, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you want to get better creatively, you're gonna probably have to switch that up somehow. You know what I'm saying? And I think a virtual community is kind of like a supplement to that. But the goal is definitely like get more people around you. And so like if I'm honest, I'm hitting a wall in my fitness. Why am I hitting a wall? Because I'm the strongest, most healthy, most consistent guy around. And so like I'm craving to get around somebody stronger, somebody more fit, somebody that could push me more. You know what I'm saying? Let me bring in, hold on. Who hasn't spoken yet? Philip has not spoken yet. Let me bring in Philip. Philip in the whip. What's up, bro? You got to unmute yourself.
What's poppin', y'all? Yeah, man, I've been back and forth with the kids, so I was trying not to scream the Zoom call out, but
nah, you good.
Just something that this has been really, really dope conversation. Also, just to be a fly on the wall in it, it's been fire. One of the things I just wanted to say that's been helping me a lot creatively has been just taking different avenues than what I would normally take. I would argue that one of the things that actually helped me become a way better writer in music was not listening to just rap music, especially like paying attention. Like, is the point, like, I can't remember who said it earlier, but just like sometimes you do kind of have to be paying attention to what's relevant and maybe doing something that's a little more current. And some of us who are more purists, like myself, we feel like, nah, like get that new school, whatever, out of here. But it's like, that's one thing. But for me, when I wanted to listen, like a lot of my production is unique to me as far as my live shows are concerned. I don't hear a lot of people who do live shows like me. I hear people with bands. I hear a lot of rappers with bands. But rappers with bands and rappers with music that's centered around what they're doing and musicians who are free to do what they want is different than a rapper with a band. And that came from listening to jazz. That came from not just being involved in hip hop, but taking the stuff that I learned from gospel music and taking the stuff I hear from fusion and other stuff and saying, all right, when I watch really dope live shows, are most of those dope live shows I watch rappers, or are they other kinds of artists? Because rap is too cool for school a lot of times. They don't want you to move around a lot.
Yeah.
They don't want you to get too excited and stuff like that. But it's also those other kinds of art forms that I would see that when they got so deep and engaged in the crowd and sharing their heart and things like that, and people will connect with you. So that's one thing. The other thing is being willing to engage in just being humble enough to ask for help, like, is so important.
Yeah.
Collaborating has drastically changed a lot of stuff for me. And I'm not talking about collaborating like me featuring so-and-so. I'm talking about, I don't want to engineer my own vocals all the time. I don't like recording my own stuff because I haven't taken the time to do it. And the other day I was having an issue. We were talking offline, trying to record a demo. Couldn't get the demo done. My interface was bugged out. I didn't know because I'm not an engineer like that. I only do a little bit of self-engineering stuff and shop it out to other people. I knew somebody who lived not that far from me, did way better, and he had ideas for my vocals and things that I couldn't do. It's okay to not know how to do everything.
Yes.
And for me, as an artist, a lot of times we watch the Russes of the world, or we'll watch the John Bellions of the world, and these are not common people. It's not common as an artist to be able to mix and master all your own stuff, produce your own stuff. That is not common. It's okay, and you're not a failure if you can't do all that. Everybody in my circle can't compose like me, but I can't write like everybody else. Be okay with not being the one-stop shop for everything, and be okay with listening to things outside of what you would normally listen to, or advice outside of what you would normally listen to, or watching somebody's performance that's not in the genre or the field that you want to do. It can drastically expand your brain. And I listen to music that I do not understand all the time because there's so much to learn. And I find myself inspired by people who are in completely different fields. And I say, I'm going to take the positives that I see from you. I don't have to become you, but your art and your talent isn't meant for just you anyway. And somebody will be inspired by what I do. And that's happened. There are people who do music because of things they heard from me in part. And I find that to be the most inspiring. So just having a goal beyond yourself, I think is really big. It's just a sidebar and all that, but not just being focused on I hear so many, whenever I want to hear somebody, or whenever I want to know I'm about to write somebody off, all you got to tell me is I do it for my city. Your city? What the heck is your city, bro? What do you have beyond I just want to be known by somebody?
Yeah.
Being famous and being successful is not the same. And Sharkeisha is famous. But did Sharkeisha monetize that punch that got her millions of views? You feel me? So I'm trying to be successful, not just relevant.
That's good.
So that's it. I'm done.
All right, we're gonna start wrapping it up, man. If anybody has anything else to add that hasn't spoken yet, I don't know if anybody want to jump in. Because we gone. Dang, he's talking about Sharkeisha. We gone about an hour. So yeah, we're gonna go offline. And we're gonna chop it up privately. If you guys want to join, the link is in the description. And just kind of talk this a little further offline, where people can call in. But everybody on YouTube, thank you guys, man. Figure out what that thing is you need to start doing to just be a healthier person. I think for a lot of us, we probably know what we should be doing. We should be, sleeping more, drinking more water, eating less fried food and fast food, like those things, So figure out what that thing is, and I think you'll be surprised how much your mood and your overall creative output just changes when you start doing something that is more refreshing to your soul, and to your body and moving and all that kind of stuff. I have a really cool podcast with my pastor where we talked about this at length. I'll add that in the description below. But we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to keep going offline for a little bit, chopping it up with the Patreon community. We're actually pretty deep in here right now. But those of you guys on YouTube, I just posted the links in the description. Join us over on Zoom, on Patreon privately. Appreciate you guys. Peace.